Hey guys, welcome to the Visit Tavern series. Today we have a special guest with us from NWA Powerrr. You can find him every Tuesday on Fight TV. Mr. Matthew MIMS. What's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. Just trying to shut up my phone while it gets a little bit too loud over on this chat.
Well, man, we appreciate you stopping by. We're glad to have you here, man. We love talking to like-minded wrestling fans and people that are in the business, man.
Oh yeah, and it's a great business to be in because there's just a lot of people that I found that just are super knowledgeable about the sport that we're in, and honestly, it comes from some of the weirdest places you wouldn't expect. So I've learned so much from just people in the normal indies, the major indies, the majors, the shindies, as I like to call them sometimes, where you find like the lows of the low, like you're maybe wrestling out in a parking lot or whatnot in front of like 5 or 6 people, but you'll find somebody who's just a sage of knowledge, and completely unexpected. So I definitely love the sport as a whole, just for everything that you learn in there from any walk of life.
So far in your career, what's the craziest place you've had to wrestle?
Oh man. See, I'm gonna reveal I haven't wrestled a lot. I mean, compared to a lot of people at the same point in my career, I think probably like the craziest place I've wrestled so far has been in a horse arena. And I never knew what a horse arena was. When I was told, I think the place was out in like Woodsbury, Tennessee, or something like that. I was told it was a horse arena. I was like, okay, maybe it's like some big like arena. When you hear the word arena, you're thinking like hundreds of thousands of fans or something like that, in some really big spot. No, I never knew what a horse arena was because obviously I didn't really grow up around horses. And we go there, and it's just like basically like this big like horse stable area where I guess they trot out horses for competitions. I was like, oh, this is for real. This is what we're doing. And so we're wrestling. They've got stands because I guess I actually like have fans for these events, or like they really fill them out. And then we just had like, I guess, these black tarps. They all look like trash bags, but they were like built all around the place to make us like a small little shelter, I guess.
Yeah.
For the show, put the ring on top of that, put some chairs around it. It was the weirdest place I'd ever been in. Definitely love the environment outside of the smell. The smell was probably the worst thing about it. It definitely smelled like a horse arena. If we didn't believe it at first. So that was probably the craziest place I've ever wrestled in.
That's interesting, man. I don't think I know what a horse arena is, so
Yeah.
kind of just painted the picture. I didn't know what it was either. So,
oh yeah, it's definitely something that when you see it and when you smell it, you'll know where you're at.
Yeah, it's wild hearing guys talk about some of the places they've had to wrestle. It's almost like wrestling and garage rock bands, indie rock bands coming up. The venues that you guys have to go into sometimes is just always interesting to me, cutting your teeth coming up in the game. We can find people listening can find you, Mims, every Tuesday on NWA Powerrr. And
they can.
You've been having some great matches on there. Are you excited for, there's a big weekend coming up at the end of August. There's NWA 73. There's Empowerrr, the first ever all women's pay-per-view. It's going to be in St. Louis at the Chase. What's your thoughts on this event, and how important is this event for you?
It's really important. Honestly, like what I've been doing, just because they always tell you whenever you become a professional wrestler, always study wrestling, always watch wrestling and whatnot. Pretty much for the past 2 months, I've been doing nothing but watching old NWA St. Louis wrestling at the Chase to kind of get prepared for it. And just the amount of people that have been there already that I look up to, that I was a big fan of growing up, and even still now, of the techniques that they have. And just their style, their character, just everything about them, and seeing that long list of names wrestling the same place I'm going to be going to. Not even if I didn't get to wrestle, it still would be an honor just to stand in that same building. It really was just going there for the press conference a couple weeks ago to even talk about it. It was something that was like a little bit nerve wracking, but honestly, it's inspiring. it's something that kind of puts it lights a fire under your ass, and you kind of want to do better. You want to rise to the occasion. You kind of want to be like those Butch Reeds, those Hulk Hogans, those Harley Races, the Von Erichs. You want to be like those guys who are wrestling there and kind of like build up the same legend they kind of built up for themselves over their career, either starting there or, you know, cutting their teeth there, like you said, or either just showing off the skills they've already been displaying so far in a storied career. So I feel really great about it. I'm really excited for Empowerrr because it's something that I truly believe in, and I love that Mickie has this kind of vision that she can be able to put forward, and Billy's going to be the one to architect that and help that along and make that happen. Because in a lot of places, stuff like this wouldn't happen. The kind of roster she's building for the show is magnificent, and this is the great thing about it. I'm excited for the roster she's building for this, and I don't even know everybody that's going to be there. I only know a handful of them, and a handful of these people that are going to be at this event already have me extremely excited to see this wrestling firsthand. Like I was honestly tempted to buy a ticket, even though why would I buy a ticket? I'm already going to be there in the first place because I wanted to see the show and I wanted to be front row watching this instead of having to sit in the back or find a TV somewhere in the hotel, which the hotel is amazingly large, to go and watch all this just because I'm excited for it. And obviously, I can't do the same thing for NWA 73 because I'm going to be there. So I guess I get the best seat in the house for NWA 73 because I'll be right in the middle of the ring.
I mean, you can't really get better than that. But I mean, that's a true testament to how you think the event's going to be when you want to buy a ticket to be there.
Oh, yeah. Especially because, like, I've met so far, like, obviously I've met everybody that's on the NWA women's roster currently, but also I got to meet one of the newest additions, Toelin. So Toelin is a great girl. She's super sweet, super nice. And over just a few hours, we were there at the Chase for the press conference event. We kind of got to know each other and we became, you know, pretty good pals, you know, like I'm saying. We got to talk for a bit, and I'm a big fan of her work so far. And I've been trying to look up as much as I can to find more of her stuff and see more about her character. And then I guess kind of like her alter ego when she puts on the mask, when she's Seishing. Seishing, I'm sorry, I keep messing it up. I was messing it up before whenever we were talking about it. But I'm really interested to see more of her and kind of see something more up to date, obviously, at NWA Empowerrr, to kind of see it up close and personal and see exactly what she can do, because she knows, and she definitely has to get reassured about it, because I know she's a little bit nervous being on such a big stage. Mickie fully believes in what she's doing. She fully believes that she needs to be a part of her vision for women's wrestling and for Empowerrr. And I'm ready to see the exact same thing that she sees.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see all of the names that haven't been announced yet for Empowerrr, and you know, with Tootie, like, it's already off to a great start. And correct me if I'm wrong, she is, you know, she's local to St. Louis, right?
Oh yeah. So I like the small bit of her story that I did learn about while I was there and while I was talking to her. Apparently, there was a very big buzz about her, and people were basically just yelling and screaming at Mickie over social media to get Tootie in, to make sure that Tootie was a part of this. And so something that's so organic like that, it kind of reminds me a little bit of because I guess more of my influence, I've watched more WWE than I've watched anything else. It kind of reminds me more of like the Daniel Bryan Yes movement that they had, where everybody was up in the ring and they had the Yes shirts on, and everybody was just organically really behind that man. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of that. You know, obviously I don't get to see as much of it just because, you know, I'm not local to St. Louis, but kind of hearing that organic, like, fan demand for this young lady is incredible. And to be able to see it, like, that's one of the things I'm most excited for, by the way.
And I think it's a testament to NWA and Mickie James to listen to that groundswell of support for people, and to bring them in and showcase them. That says a lot. And, you know, I think this weekend there's something else to it. It's not just another pay-per-view. You know, we see a lot of pay-per-views come and go throughout all the promotions, but to me, there's something extra here. There's something special. You know, we spoke to Kyle Davis of NWA. We spoke to Sal Renaro recently. These guys, there's a reverence and you know, I can hear it in all of your voices. There's a reverence for this event, being at the Chase and everything. What is it about NWA kind of honoring that history, what makes that special? What is it, them tipping the cap to the past? What do you think that is that makes it extra special?
Well, I mean, first, I guess to answer that question, I have to go into like kind of what you see with the roster here. So nobody's really in this for the money per se. Every single person on the roster is very passionate about professional wrestling. No matter who it is, they walk into the doors of the NWA, they've already had a passion that's been noted by Billy, and they display it whenever they wrestle. Like, you can talk to plenty of these guys and see these guys and girls. They love professional wrestling. They want to bring back that kind of traditional feel to it, that classic feel to it, and then kind of further that themselves, their own spin on it. And everybody's very, very, very passionate about the business. So they're passionate about the history of the NWA. They're passionate about continuing that, and they're passionate about putting it back on the pedestal that it was on before, being at the top of professional wrestling. And honestly, in my opinion, and I guess I'm a little bit biased, but also, hey, I like what I like. We already are on that pedestal. This weekend that's coming up is just going to be showing that exact same thing off. The way that I'm bragging about the NWA, and I'm bragging about what I'm doing and being a part of it, and bragging about that locker room that I'm in, we get to show that off to the world. If people weren't paying attention before, if they weren't exactly super focused on what the NWA was doing, well, we have 2 straight pay-per-views of some of the best stuff you're ever going to see in professional wrestling to show that off. This is our platform to do that, and it's going to be an event that's going to have all eyes on it. No matter where it's at in the professional wrestling world, they're going to have their eyes on this. Even if, for example, maybe your favorite wrestler in some certain company isn't talking about it, or news sites may not cover it as much, but I guarantee you, everybody in the professional wrestling world, everybody that knows anything about professional wrestling, that was a fan of the NWA growing up, that's a fan of any professional wrestling, anybody who's still currently operating in this business from the top to the bottom, is going to be paying attention to these 2 shows this entire weekend. That's going to keep everybody like locked in on this to see where professional wrestling goes. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited to be a part of that. I'm excited to say that I'm going to be one of those trendsetters in professional wrestling, being a part of that trend being set by the NWA.
Man, I'm going to be honest with you. Hearing that statement from you right there, I was pumped up for it, but like, no lie, that really pumped me up.
Yeah, it got me fired up. I love it.
Yeah, that definitely lit a fire. I'm ready for that event, because I know, I mean, just hearing the passion about that everybody's talked about, it's going to be amazing. Now, you mentioned the NWA Locker Room. So what is it that's special about that NWA Locker Room? During NWA tapings right now, just what's special about the locker room that you guys have?
Well, one of the biggest things, no pun intended for what I'm about to say here, is that honestly, I like to think that I'm a pretty big dude. Most people tell me I'm a big old dude, so that's why I'm a big strong man. I'm big strong men's. This is the first locker room I've ever been in. Just talking about the indies, and even just any locker room that I've been in, to where I don't feel like the biggest guy there. It's something that kind of breeds that competition in me. And I like that. I like to feel competitive. I like to feel like I want to be the very best. And I like to feel that whenever I compete, that I can have a true measure of how good I actually am, or how strong I am, how big I am. And that kind of goes back to a little bit of my background with powerlifting, and kind of how I came into that. So I did a little bit of amateur powerlifting, like a little bit after I got into college, just because I wanted to, the college I ended up going to, I wanted to play football for it, just because it was the college I really was looking at. It was one that was close to home, and the only colleges that were giving me scholarships or looking at me for anything that I did with football or track or baseball or anything else I did, they weren't going to offer me exactly what I wanted. So I went to this school, and I was thinking, okay, well, I can just, come in, hopefully walk on, impress, be a part of the football program here and there. And I learned a little bit that it was a bit of an illusion that I wasn't going to be a part of. So I kind of got into powerlifting. So one of the best things about being in that gym on campus was seeing the other bigger, stronger, larger players that definitely looked better on paper than I did. I had the stats that looked great on paper, but when it came to size, that didn't really look too great for the position I played. I was an offensive and defensive lineman throughout my entire career, football, even up into semi-pro. And the problem that a lot of people had with that by the time I left high school was I was 173 pounds. and I was only 5'9.5". So luckily, puberty gave me a couple more inches or whatnot. So I got to gain a little bit more muscle on me. But I was a very lean. I was like 3% body fat at 173. But I had the technique and I had the skill to be, very good at what I was doing. And so seeing those bigger guys, it was intimidating, and also to know that there was people that were actually stronger than me by a lot. Whether they're natural or not, and kind of seeing that kind of lit that competitive fire under me. That's where I gained like all the muscle at. That's where I gained all the strength at. That's where I kind of fell in love with powerlifting, is that I was always pound for pound better than a lot of other people. But I kind of wanted to, I kind of had like a chip on my shoulder to prove myself, to be better than all those people that were bigger and possibly in some people's minds better than me. And it's kind of like I get that same feeling again when I come into the NWA locker room. These guys are huge. These guys are monsters in this business. And when they say that, because obviously a lot of our roster is former WWE guys, when they say it's the land of the Giants, they're not kidding. Nick Aldis is what, 6'4", 6'5", Aaron Stevens, 6'4", 6'5", Trevor Murdoch around the same size. The biggest guy on the roster is Tyrus, and he's what, 6'6", 6'7", probably like, mid to higher like 300s. And he's a very, very large guy. And so it kind of breeds this competition to kind of like help myself rise to the occasion and kind of be on the same stature as them. To kind of be one of those guys like, I would say Benoit, Chris Benoit, Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero, even because I've been around the guy and I think he's fantastic and he's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, RVD. Me and RVD are like, I'm slightly taller than him. I'm probably a little bit bigger than his size or whatnot. Same, a little bit bigger than like Jeff Hardy, around the same height as him. But like, you come into these locker rooms with these guys in the NWA, and almost everybody is at least 6'2", 6'3", something like that. At least like 250 pounds is not as impressive in the NWA. It's not. You come into that locker room, let's say in other promotions or whatnot, and you're 250 pounds and you're 6'2", you're the biggest guy there. Here, I'm a normal dude. To some of these guys, I may be even smaller than what they expect, and it's kind of motivating to be around these guys that are a bit bigger than me, and be around some of the, like, honestly, a lot of these guys, they train very well and they're very dangerous men. Don't let anybody fool you about that. This is, like, a lot of people like to say, hey, professional wrestling's a work. Oh, these guys aren't tough. These guys, there's some of the toughest men on the planet that are walking around these locker rooms.
Yeah, there's not a chance I would want to meet Trevor Murdoch anywhere.
Oh, yeah. Trevor Murdoch, one, super nice guy, but the thing is, he's one of those dudes you just don't push him. One guy in particular I can think of that, like, he definitely exudes that badass attitude, and by all means and accounts, you can look up this man's resume and he can back it up. J.R. Kratos. That man is a very dangerous man. But to step in a locker room with him kind of makes you feel like you gotta do whatever you can to be on his level, to try to be like a fraction of what kind of like danger he brings to the equation. And it's intimidating. He brings that into the ring every time he steps in there. And the guy's the real deal. Same thing with Luke Hawx. I mean, he's very well trained. There's a lot of other guys in the NWA that are legitimately very dangerous dudes. Same thing with the ladies that are in the NWA. So kind of being around that environment, it like I said, it motivates you to be better. It's intimidating, but in a good way.
Yeah.
So, being around those guys, is there anyone, you're young in the game and there's a lot of vets there who've been around for a minute. Is there anyone in particular that, you kind of go to for advice, or, pick their brain on certain things, almost like a mentor?
Yeah. I mean, I already do kind of have mentors, with my tried and true pro family. So actually where I come from, here in Clarksville, Tennessee, we have a home promotion for me. It's Tried and True Pro. Mm-hmm. So obviously the owner would be Crimson. Yeah. And then with the Tried and True Academy, we've had a myriad of coaches come in. The main coaches that have stuck with me throughout my training. Obviously, I started off with Jeremiah Plunkett, who's somebody I still go to this day. I love to keep up with Coach Plunkett because his opinion holds so much weight to me. Same thing with Coach Tom Latimer. And then obviously my second coach was Crazy Steve from Impact, and a lot of his teachings still hold true with me. So usually you'll go to, especially because we're all in the same company right now, for the three people I'm mentioning, with Plunkett, with Crimson, with Tom, these are going to be the first people that I go to for advice. And then also, one of the people that, and I don't like to reveal too much of the behind the scenes, like business stuff or whatnot,
Yep.
but somebody else who did believe in what I was doing. And obviously he's going to be the one you got to go to, like, the final approval for outside of Billy would be Nick. Nick was somebody who saw me, just because, obviously they're good friends behind the scenes with Crimson and Tom, and kind of saw what I was doing and was like, oh, well, this is one of the better guys. I can really do something with this guy. He's got a lot of potential. And so he kind of believes in me and being a part of the NWA and understanding that my heart is fully into the NWA and what they stand for. And they kind of share my same love of professional wrestling. And he probably shares exactly the same sentiment that I do. Obviously, with how hard he works for the NWA. And you guys only get to see like a little bit of what he does for the NWA in front of a camera. Everything behind the scenes is still, it's a ton of work. This is definitely just as much of a product of Billy's doing and Dave Lagana's doing as it is with Nick Aldis is doing. So these are kind of some of the guys that I go to. And before I even forget, I also go to, Jack Stain, being one of Crimson's partners. He's obviously closer to him, and he's been closer to me during a lot of my career. I've had a couple of matches against the War Kings before we even got to NWA. So they've been a big part of shaping me and helping me kind of get used to dealing with bigger guys. Because again, these are probably the two big guys I deal with the most out of everybody else. So at least like having two guys who can like legitimately kick my ass in these matches definitely like makes me a better professional wrestler overall. So those are kind of the guys I go to. And before I forget, one of my other coaches, and sometimes I forget him, and he's also been very important in my career, especially when it started out, and even to this day. On screen, he is Danny Deals. He's Danny Deals, but Uncle Tony Lucchesio, that is definitely somebody who's given me a lot of words of wisdom and has definitely steered me in the right direction with everything in professional wrestling. So those will be the group of guys that I kind of go to first for anything. And these are people that care about my career in professional wrestling, and I can trust their opinion. I can trust them to tell me, hey, no, this is garbage. No, this is the greatest thing we ever saw, and their opinions hold more weight than anybody else's.
It's a good group of guys to go to.
Oh yeah, geniuses in the wrestling business, and that's who I'd rather go to, especially because they will tell it to me straight. That's one thing that I value over anything else in professional wrestling, because there's a lot of yes men. There's a lot of people that would be like, "Oh yeah, brother, that was great, that was fantastic," even though my match was terrible.
Yeah.
And these are the guys who won.
One thing I always. I don't know if I've asked anyone this, but I've always wondered, when you guys are doing NWA Powerrr tapings, and you film it over a course of a few days, what are you guys doing in the back when you're not wrestling? When you're not, when the spotlight's not on you and you're kind of just hanging out with the guys, how do you guys spend your time in between being needed for the actual shoot? Are you guys playing cards? Are you listening to music? Like, what's going on back there?
See, me, I'm not somebody who because I'm still kind of new. This is the thing. I'm new to like a lot of these major promotions. A lot of these guys have been there for a while. So one thing that I personally do, and hopefully somebody, I guess some people who may see it as a little bit weird or probably listening in on this whenever this goes up, that I usually try to give, at least when we're in Atlanta, in our normal home, I try to give them the locker room to have their own space, just because I'm one of the younger guys. It's a nice space that we have there, and I kind of want to give them that to be able to go over their matches, talk with their buddies. Because a lot of these guys here, they're really a tight knit group. A lot of them know each other, and they've known each other for years. So I like to kind of give them that space. So I'm not just sitting around looking at other people, and they know I'm actively listening to their stories, trying to like pick their brains and ear hustle up some information, because of course I want to listen to any stories that these guys have to tell.
Yeah.
And honestly, like for me, it's a lot of, stretching out and talking with my boys, just because the Tried and True Pro family, we also handle a lot of the behind the scenes stuff when it comes to NWA. Just because we have a great crew of guys. from my own personal tag team partner to the rest of the students that are part of that academy, we help put that ring together. We bring it back and forth. We do a lot of things to help set up with that great staff that we have at Georgia Public Broadcasting. And then also everybody else that's in the NWA kind of coming together to form what you guys see every time Tuesday rolls around. So I'm usually kind of hanging out with my boys a little bit, you know, keeping that space open. If anybody has a word of wisdom to give me, I'm asking. I'm doing the first thing I possibly can to be a sponge to anything in the professional wrestling business. But I mostly let the vets have their space. Let the boys be boys, you know what I'm saying? I don't like to intrude. So some people may see it as antisocial, but I just see it as like an extra step in being respectful.
Yeah, I see that. That's respect, you know, kicking back and giving them that space. Let's take it back for a second. We always got to know early fandom. When you were a kid, were you a pro wrestling fan? How did you get into pro wrestling as a fan? And who were your guys? Who were you watching growing up? Who did you gravitate towards?
All right. Yeah, I was definitely a fan as a kid. I think I might have told this before on a different interview I've had, just a couple conversations, but I always told people that my mom was not a fan of professional wrestling at all. Like,
Yeah,
my
my
mom
mom
was definitely moms.
Yeah.
She was definitely not a fan of professional wrestling, but she was a fan of me with other hobbies. She was fully into my video game hobby. She wanted to get me into comic books, and unfortunately, at the time, I was dumb. I wasn't really as into comic books. I love superheroes and love watching the TV shows, but I was like reading comic books. Get out of here. Yeah, funny enough, it took until like I read some of Jeff Johns' work, like all the way in like 2010 for me to get in the comics. But with professional wrestling, that was the one thing she just definitely didn't approve of. So for years, I had to kind of sneak and watch stuff. And as I got older, I got a little bit better at sneaking around and watching it. And I think the first match I ever like clicked through some channels and seen, I think it might have been a match between Bret Hart and Mr. Perfect. And it was a while back. So obviously we're talking like the new generation era. That's like the first time I ever like rolled through and watched something, got the first like, you know, butt whooping and hey, don't you ever watch that in my house again. So I definitely had favorites. I know when I started consistently watching as much WWF as possible, it was probably around a little bit, like a few weeks before Triple H's return after the quad tear. That was when I first started watching. And honestly, I had my favorites. Obviously, the typical favorites that a lot of people had, you know, The Rock, Stone Cold, Undertaker. I was a big fan of Gangrel in the Brood. And you know, I was a really big fan of like, you know, Too Cool. And then also when I got a little bit more consistent with watching professional wrestling and I got a little bit more into it, once I kind of like learned the big secret that everybody knows, I think I'd watched like some sort of documentary for him and it was really good. And this kind of solidified who my favorite was. Because for the longest time, Undertaker was my favorite. It was a distant first place. And then Triple H kind of took it once I learned a little bit more about him and about how he respected the business and his passion for it. And so people have their opinions left and right or whatever, up and down about Triple H. But honestly, that's somebody that just seeing the amount of respect he has for the business and the amount that he's done for the business, the huge impact that he's made, makes him one of my all-time favorites.
So, I'm right there with you, man.
Big fan and still a fan.
Yeah, it might be the same documentary. I was kind of, I always liked Triple H, but there was some WWE documentary that was about Triple H and really went into his beginnings, and it made me respect the man so much more because you saw how big of just a fan he is.
Oh yeah.
Now you said your mom supported your video game habits. What kind of video games you like, man?
I was obviously like a big Nintendo kid. Most kids were. They were either a Sega kid or a Nintendo kid growing up in the 90s. And I was a big Nintendo fanboy for most of my life. Probably one of my prized possessions and still my favorite game of all time because my grandfather gave this to me. So it was like the first system I ever had bought for me, the first 2 games ever bought for me. I still have the original controller, the original system. It was a Super Nintendo that I got.
Oh yeah.
Obviously past its time. I think it was probably, I got the systems bought for me in like 98. So it was like 6 years old. And so I didn't know any better. I didn't know what was out at the time. I wasn't really like, super keeping up with video games. I was a little kid. But getting that Super Nintendo, getting the black cartridge of Killer Instinct, and then getting Donkey Kong Country 2, like I was in love as a kid, and I still have all of those to this day. It's still, like I said, my prized possession. Donkey Kong Country 2 is still my favorite game of all time. It cannot go wrong. It never misses. It is always something I can go back to and play. I think I even went back through it and played it twice while I moved into this new place that I'm in, just because we didn't have internet for like a week. So all I did was just play Donkey Kong the entire time.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it, man.
Oh yeah, hey, without internet, it's a desolate wasteland when it comes to the current crop of games right now. If you don't have internet, you ain't playing anything.
Yeah.
What we grew up with, man.
Oh yeah, and so it's weird to go back. Like I was either busting out my Wii U or I was busting out my Super Nintendo to play that, and I try to bust out my GameCube and try to relive my glory days in Def Jam Fight for New York. And I don't know how as a child, like. When I was in high school, I had no idea how I went on a 100% perfect run when I went through the story mode, because I got in there and just kept getting my ass kicked by Ice-T. That entire time, I had to definitely put up the GameCube in shame for that whole week of not having internet. Right now, I'm playing a lot of Gears. I got to finish up that Tour of Duty because I'm a big Gears fan. Like, if anything, one of my goals is to be like the New Day or be like Batista and get into Gears, like be my own character in the game. That would be fantastic because I absolutely love the game and I still play it like crazy. I think, yeah, mostly like back and forth between that and Apex Legends. And I just started up Psychonauts to get ready for Psychonauts 2. So that's just a little bit of what I'm doing right now.
That's awesome. What are you playing? You know, if you only have a Nintendo 64, what's your game of choice if you got the 64?
I'm not gonna lie. So I did a little bit of Smash Bros. Playing. Like I had a little group around here around town, so we went to a couple tournaments, and I did kind of okay. I would have to go with Smash if it's just absolutely one game. I can play Smash all day long, every day, all day, and never stop playing.
I always loved GoldenEye and Wave Race. Something about that. I thought Wave Race for the time, man, the graphics blew me away. That jet ski game, it was crazy.
That and like Cruising USA blew me away at the same time because I was like, oh, it's like the arcade's like right in my house. It's crazy. They're so real.
I don't even have to go to the mall to play this.
Now you talked about training with Crimson, and you brought up your powerlifting background. How, and we just found out about your fandom. How did you go from being a fan to actually wanting to do it and training pro wrestling? Was it a transition from your powerlifting, or how did that come to be?
Yeah, it was actually a big transition because also during the time I was in high school, I was also an amateur wrestler. And so I can kind of go a little bit into my tag team partner, Mix, in my GS, because everybody gets it confused. They're like, Migs, Mims? Yeah, you change one letter. You change the second M to a G and you got it. But my boy Miguel, I've known him since we were like in 7th grade. And then we kind of got a lot closer when we got in high school because we were always just, we were always around each other. I think it was probably around the time that I started doing like training with amateur wrestling. And I started off like during the summer, whenever we were training for football, we were doing like tri-sessions, like 3-a-day workouts or whatever for football. I'd come in after we were done doing that, and I'd come in, wrestle with some of the amateur wrestlers up there, and kind of got a little bit closer to Miguel and got to know him a lot more. We kind of became, really close friends. I know Miguel because he was kind of, some people kind of treat him like he was the weird kid because he was super into pro wrestling. He actually ended up going to Lance Storm's academy in Calgary. And so I was supposed to get on that same boat and go up there too. And he was the inspiration to let me know that, hey, professional wrestling isn't just like a dream you have. Like there's actual steps you can take to get to it, because I always wanted to be a professional wrestler. But how are you going to do that? Nobody ever talked about like what you do to become a pro wrestler. You just see people show up on TV and you're like, oh, there they are. And so he kind of let me know a little bit more about that while we were in college. We were still hanging out, chasing girls and whatever stupid stuff. And he was just like, hey, well, I've had this whole thing and this whole plan I've had since Chris Jericho told me himself at a book signing, hey, do this and this and this to become a professional wrestler if that's what you want to do. Back when he was in like 6th grade.
Wow.
So
Oh man.
He tells me that plan, and I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe he knows what he's talking about or whatever. He saved up all this money to go, and by the time we end up leaving college, he ends up going. Well, unfortunately for me, and I guess fortunately for me, I didn't actually get to go with him to go up there for training. So whenever he got his basic training done at Storm's Wrestling Academy, he came back and he started his wrestling career. Well, things didn't go too great in his first run, but I was kind of inspired to do the same thing. Luckily, I kind of waited. I was a little bit patient, and then Tried and True rolled around in like 2015. Crimson started doing shows. I eventually got in from being a fan to actually, clean up the bathrooms, moving chairs around, doing security, and then eventually the school came around 2018. And once I got my basic training done, and most people kind of know the story about that, Plunkett breaking me in. Once we go to the second cycle of training with Crazy Steve, I convinced Miguel to step back into the ring, and we kind of get back to the training aspect of things, so we can kind of knock the rust off. And so, furthering our training with Crazy Steve, and also with Dr. Tom, not with Dr. Tom, I'm sorry, with Tom Latimer, that kind of gave us our way to do things together. So it's basically a long way to kind of explain that if it wasn't for Miguel, I wouldn't be doing professional wrestling right now. Basically, that's the whole way that I got into it. It turned from being a fan to actually doing this as an actual career.
That's crazy, man. But you almost took a path to where you weren't a wrestler. Were you going to be you had an NFL tryout maybe?
The closest thing I ever had was with semi-pro football.
Okay.
I had been playing for a little bit, and then we ended up switching teams. I was on a team out in Kentucky. And the team out in Kentucky, I guess the coach, he had been doing this for a while. He had a good in with the Tennessee Titans.
Okay.
And so we all had an opportunity, if we finished out the season, to go to their training camp and possibly do tryouts for them. Just, practice squad stuff, maybe work your way up if you work really hard. And I had started to get an injury, I guess I got over time from having the weight on my frame that I wasn't used to, and my body still at that time going through puberty. I think I was 22, 23. So going through the last stretches of that, and ended up separating my groin. It got so bad after every play at practice or either in games, I was literally crawling back to set position. I'd be able to hit and do whatever I need to do completely accurately. That's why they didn't take me off the field, but my legs were not going for all that weight.
Yeah.
So I ended up kind of sidelining me from that. And, that's what kind of, still kept me into powerlifting after I got done with bed rest for a month. But eventually wrestling kind of became the thing that I wanted to do.
Gotcha. So for those that don't know, how would you describe MIMS in the ring?
I would say I'm more of I'm a traditional, kind of old school powerhouse. I'm somebody who kind of throws in, I wouldn't say the most aggressive guy to start out. I'm definitely somebody who's competing to have fun. Professional wrestling is fun to me. It's fun to me, but first and foremost, I'm there to win. I'm not just there to compete. I'm there to win that match. I'm there to win whatever title I have my eyes set on in the first place. And you'll definitely see that whenever I'm in the ring. I'm no nonsense when it comes to it. I'm not going to waste any movement in that ring. You're not going to see me jumping around or flipping around. Not that that's a bad thing. You're not going to see me doing anything that isn't going to lead to me either knocking that person out, pinning that person, or making them tap out. Whatever can possibly happen that's going to win me the match, I'd rather work smarter, not harder. And if I have to, beat it out of them. That's at the very least. So I'm somebody who definitely can kind of get technical when I need to get technical. I can use that power when I need to use that power. But the first and foremost thing that I'm going for is that win. I try to get as straight from point A to point B as possible, and that's exactly what you see when I'm in that ring. I always wrestle towards that finish. And I'm trying to start that finish at the beginning. If I can hit you with my finishing move, if I can hit you with a hookup when we first start out, I'm going for it.
Always about the victory. I love it.
Exactly.
How, what was it like? Walk us through the moment when you got that shot with NWA. Did you get the, when was the phone call? When was was it a phone call? Was it, did you speak with Billy Corgan? I imagine, was it Crimson that kind of got you in, or how did that go?
Funny enough, it was actually Tom. It was Tom. So Tom kind of approached me. I think I was still working at the same gym that he was coming to work out at, and he kind of approached me and he was just like, "Hey, the last show we did for TNT, he's like, you saw Lagana was there." And he was like, "Yeah, Lagana said we need a couple guys. We're trying to think about, this new show we're starting up with NWA Powerrr, and we kind of want you guys to start off, with some talent, some guys, like some local guys, you guys can go and pummel and beat up, because at the time, Tom and Royce, the wild cards, they just won the titles." So they were kind of, trying to get shined up. They wanted somebody who was kind of on their level, but not really on their level, somebody they can make easy work. So the first thing Tom said to me was like, "Hey, you and Miguel, do you guys want to take this opportunity?" Blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, Miguel kind of had other circumstances, but that's kind of the conversation that we had, is that, hey, you can come in, you get a shot. We can let you try something out and we can give you a look. I honestly have not had a conversation with Billy Corgan until probably the first time I actually got to even say hi or bye to this man was probably it was probably like a few sets of tapings in. It was probably like the second or third season. I'd probably say like the second season of NWA Powerrr. Unfortunately, I just didn't get the time to like say, "Hey, Billy, thank you for the opportunity." Yeah, so it was definitely like second or third set of tapings, but it was exciting. It was really exciting to hear that from Tom. Like I was like, "Hey, this is it. This is like my big break. I know it may not be something that's that big. I know they're basically going to come in and kick my ass, but I'm excited to be there because this is going to be something that's going to be on TV. Like this is the very first episode of a brand new product that I can be a part of. I can help build this company up." And seeing what their vision was, even at an early starting point, and being there for a lot of the different events in the 10 pounds of gold. Because they did a couple of shows that were in Nashville, that were in Clarksville, that were part of what TNT was doing, or we helped set that up. And kind of seeing that from that side and knowing that I get to be a part of that, what they're building, that was enormous to me. That was huge to me. That was ground shaking to me to know that I can even be a small part of it at that point.
And I feel like you've grown within the company, like these recent tapings, after the pandemic, I feel like you've gotten a little more of a spotlight. You've stepped up. What's it like to kind of maneuver through a company and grow? And, you come in as, like you said, you're going to shine up a couple guys. You're there to put some guys over. And now you're getting more and more of an opportunity and a spotlight. That's got to feel good to climb the ranks a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, I want to be somebody that's taken seriously, just in the professional wrestling sport as a whole, to be taken seriously as an actual competitor. I don't want to be seen as one of those, small time guys or just here like a flash in the pan or anything like that. So I want to have a slow build to be something big. I want to be the best around. I want to be the best part of the NWA at some point. And they're helping me kind of realize that vision by doing that. So knowing that I was going to get more opportunity was something that like I've been fighting for a long time. And knowing that it finally came was something that kind of put me over the moon. And, I don't always say I'm the most patient person in the world. Like I hate waiting around. I've been waiting for wrestling opportunities here and there and doing stuff left and right. But I just want to be the opportunity. I just want to have the opportunity to be the best in the world and have the title and do this and do that. But I like where I'm at. I like that I can kind of enjoy this moment to shine and kind of build myself up and kind of create a fan base for myself and have a long catalog of stuff to look at as I rise up to the top. It's something that I find a lot of similarities between myself and, kind of The Rock's rise, through a lot of his stories and how he talks about his rise in his career, John Cena, Taker, Triple H, a lot of those guys. Like I see a lot of similarities between either the struggles or the pressure that I have on myself to compete and rise to the occasion. I see a lot of that in my own journey. And I love that I went from, coming out on the first episode of the show and getting absolutely obliterated. for multiple seasons, just getting like the absolute like poo-poo kicked out of me. And then kind of having that point to slowly gradually get up to the point of being able to compete and having eyes on me from other guys in the locker room to understand, hey, this isn't a guy I can just come kick in the face 1, 2, 3 and I'm out.
Yeah.
And for somebody who's going to be like me growing up, to be able to see that rise is big for me. It's big for me to leave back something that somebody else kind of left for me. So I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know. I love that match you and Slice Boogie had against the War Kings. And we had Slice Boogie on as a guest. Great guy, totally a real dude. I'd love to see you guys kind of square it up in the future. I feel like that'd be a fun little matchup there.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, if anything, everybody's talking about forbidden doors and all that jazz like that, and obviously he's had his own way to kick his open when it comes to MLW. But I definitely think he's going to be somebody that's still going to stay with us in the NWA and still work with us here. And I love to have a match with Slice Boogie. He's somebody that I really enjoy his work. I really enjoy his character because his character is just like mine, to where it's literally just him. It's just him dialed up to 11, and I really appreciate that. In professional wrestling, because like they always say, like some of the best characters are just like literally people being themselves. The Rock is literally just Dwayne Johnson. Triple H is literally just like Hall of Esque. It's literally just these guys out here being themselves.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate the realness when it comes to professional wrestling, because this is real to me. And I want people to always think whenever they see me in the ring, no matter what I'm doing, oh, this is real. Oh, well, I can argue for this being real. This isn't work.
Yeah,
because we don't work.
Now, speaking of forbidden doors, now that you're a pro wrestler, are you still a pro wrestling fan? And if so, is there any other current product that you're currently watching?
Yeah, I definitely keep up with all the products. When it comes to professional wrestling as a fan, I'm not gonna lie. On a fan standpoint, NWA is my jam. I definitely am a loyal person, so that's usually the only thing I do watch. But I make for sure I keep up with the other programs. I still watch and I still pay attention to exactly what's going on. Obviously, like I said before, I know about Slice going over to MLW and seeing what he was doing there, and I'm very impressed. Same thing with like seeing a lot of guys in AEW that I've been around before, people that I've shared a locker room with, being in AEW, being in WWE, and kind of tearing it up and doing their thing over there, being the stars that everybody knows they are.
Yeah.
So I would say definitely there's a lot of things in professional wrestling I keep my eye on.
What's in store for fans of MIMS and the future of the NWA? What do we have to look forward to?
There's a couple things that I'm working on right now that I can't exactly talk about much. Forbidden doors and stuff, all that jazz or whatever. But outside of, forbidden door business or whatever, with the NWA, I have, the championship, the champion series is still going on. There's a lot of great things that are going to be happening with that. And honestly, I was really proud of the match I had with JTG, and I think that's a fantastic.
It was a great match.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely one of my rookie Hall of Fame matches to kind of put in there for myself for this year. And then I have a couple more matches coming up with the Champion Series, and we're going to kind of see how that plays out. And then also, when NWA 73 comes up, I still don't know what's about to happen with NWA 73. And I'm going to be there. That whole weekend is the main focus for me right now, outside of our show that we have on the 13th of August in Gary, Indiana for the Race to the Chase event. It's going to be a live show through the NWA where we're kind of getting people hyped up and kind of possibly setting some spicy stuff up for that NWA 73 weekend. And those are kind of things on my mind right now outside of, forbidden stuff. That's kind of the first thing on my mind, is just to make sure we're doing anything NWA. NWA has priority in my head. They rented out a ton of headspace up here completely free. So that's everything that's going on with me, is NWA focused stuff.
That's great, man. So, all right, before we let you go, man, we're pumped you stopped by. We have one last question. This is a question we like to run by everybody. So, okay, the pandemic's over. You're making towns. You have any 3 wrestlers alive or dead in the car with you making those towns? What 3 wrestlers are in the car with you?
All right, that's a good one. I would say so far I've had a lot of fun being in the car with Plunkett. That's just one current that I got to go with, because I always love riding with Coach. He's a ton of fun to ride with. So let me go outside of coaches because I definitely had to pick priority on that one. That was Plunket first. Let's see. I would. I'm trying to think of guys that I know I would definitely want to hear everything they've been through. I think Edge is somebody that I definitely want to have in the car with me.
Oh, that's a good one. I don't think anybody's Edge. That's a good one.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm trying to think. Just because he was like a really big favorite of mine. Well, now I got to pick between the tag team now because I'm at a toss up now between like Ron Simmons and Butch Reed.
Man, if you want Doom in the car,
throw Doom in the car, man. Throw Doom in the car.
So you can't throw the whole tag team. One, we're all a bunch of big dudes. Like this is.
We'll get a van.
Go maybe four. Four might be pushing it. To have me and 3 other guys in there. So.
You can put Butch, Ron, and Teddy in there if you want.
Oh yeah, no, it would definitely. I'll probably go with Ron.
Yeah,
Ron definitely has a lot of great stories to tell, and then even just like if we're talking outside of his WCW run or whatnot, just talking about his WWF run, like there's a ton of material to go off of there, and hearing the crazy stories about him and everybody else, like this is kind of the guy you want to have in the car. Also, just in case some trouble pops off, why not have the toughest man in professional wrestling sitting in the backseat?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. It would be fun to hear his WWF story because I mean, Ron Simmons was Ron Simmons in WCW, but when he went to WWF. He went through some, Farouk, then he went to the Nation, then he went to APA. Like there's a lot of stories there. That's
so many changes that he went through. And that's what makes it really interesting to see all these different like characters or forms of the same character or whatnot. That's where I'm like, okay, this has got to be an interesting ride here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ron Simmons, one of my all-time favorites. I still remember the day he won the title in WCW and just popping for that. Like, oh, so cool.
Oh yeah, and that's something that I wish I was like a kid around that time. I wish I was even alive around that time to kind of view that and see how big that was. Because that first time, just watching that back, like on the WWE Network, I was like, "Oh, this is crazy." I'm jealous that I'm not alive during that time.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. It was super special time. It was a special moment. I love that era of WCW. That's like my childhood for me. Yeah. Mims, thank you so much for stopping on the show. Please let our listeners know where they can follow you, social media, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, basically when it comes to me, like obviously Instagram, you got, really_Mims, my Facebook page, which would be really_Mims. And then even I made for sure to change my Xbox gamer tag to really_Mims. If you want to play some Gears, I still play Overwatch occasionally. And
I might hit you up on there, man. I play Overwatch every now and then. Okay.
Oh yeah, your boy was a Zen main whenever he was really doing his thing. I've been playing a little while, but I definitely can still kind of go a little bit. But I have a ton of games, and I always love playing with fans and always finding new partners to play in all these new games that are coming out because Xbox Game Pass is just they pushing out all the hits. There's always something to play. So those would be kind of all the things everybody can really follow me. I'm not the biggest social media guy in the world or whatever, so like I only have a couple of central places where you can actually find me and know it's me.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again, Mims. We had a blast talking to you today.
Oh yeah, it was a ton of fun.
Absolutely, man. You always have a seat here if you want to come back and talk to us. Come on back by.
Oh yeah, anytime, man.
Thanks, man. Have a good night.
You too.